Hello, I'm Kristinista Health, and I realized I'd never really told my full story, my full fertility story on this channel, so I wanted to take some time and talk through it. So I decided to have children when I was 39, and my mom had had children at 36 and 38 as well as younger, and they were healthy children, so I just thought, oh, it's not really a big deal. I'm healthy, there should be no issues. And so leading up to my 39th birthday, I started taking a prenatal, and other than that, I was just waiting for the time we had decided to try to have children, because we had decided on a certain time. And I had already been tracking my cycle, so I was pretty familiar with my cycle, and I knew basically when my fertile times were, and so that was another factor that I thought it wouldn't really be that hard. And so right after I turned 39, a little bit after, we decided it was our planned time to start TTC. So the first cycle that we tried, we actually were successful and we were pregnant. Now the first trimester, I don't know, I had some like weird spotting that happened occasionally, and it was a little concerning. And so I made it through the first trimester and I thought I was golden. And then around 26 weeks, I was in my childbirth class, and I don't know, I just been having this really bad feeling. I didn't feel the baby had moved in a while, but I was also like, I didn't know if I was being overreactive or something, and I was kind of afraid to bring it up. It wasn't like time for my appointment yet, and so I talked with, and then during that visit at the childbirth education, they talked about bad outcomes. For some reason they talked about that class. And so after the class, we took the teacher aside, and I was just like, I don't think I felt the baby move in a while. And she was like, you need to call the midwives like right away, or go to the ER or something. So I called the midwives, and they're like, yeah, you need to go to the ER. And so we went to the closest ER, and they did the ultrasound and the sonogram, and the baby was gone. And I mean, we had gone to the childbirth class, and we'd basically been gone all day. I was not really prepared to give birth at all. But I kind of just wanted to get it over with. So even though I didn't have anything with me, I just went ahead and stayed at the hospital, I believe. And they had to induce me because I wasn't dilated at all. But the baby had probably been dead for about a week. So it was a very long, excruciating process. Probably like several days of labor, finally delivered, and they did this whole battery of tests, and in the end it was discovered that it was a chromosomal abnormality that I was unaware of. So I wasn't aware that that was at play, but that was really the main reason. I think enlarged heart, enlarged liver, just large brain. I think like everything was failing at that point. I decided to like try to find out what happened and what we could do differently. So I looked into MTHFR, and I went to see my doctor, and I said, can I have an MTHFR test? Now she didn't like that. She didn't care for that. She gave me a really hard time, actually. I mean, it was actually very traumatic because she was pregnant and a woman, and yet she gave me a hard time trying to find out why I had a loss, and why I had the chromosomal abnormality. But she finally agreed to give me the test. It turned out that it was a factor, as I thought it would be. So that was a whole rabbit hole about MTHFR. Now, in the end, I felt like it was only a small part of the picture, but it was still helpful to kind of find out about the MTHFR. And I have many videos on that, all the research that I did. I also found it starts with the A book, which I just think is revolutionary. And so I started implementing everything from it starts with the egg, started doing all this stuff, and finally decided I was ready to try again. And so I tried again in it was probably about a year from when I had tried the first time. And again, got pregnant first cycle, which was not surprising to me. And but this time it was really hard to be pregnant because there was that loss in the back of my mind. And it wasn't an early loss, it was a late loss. So it's like basically the whole pregnancy, I'm going to be nervous. And I went for this time I did the NIPT test to try to do screening for chromosomal abnormalities. Unfortunately, it came back with a different abnormality, but it was an abnormality that was not well tested, so it was very possibly inaccurate. So I was holding on to the hope that it was inaccurate. And then I went in for my 11 or 12 week ultrasound, and the baby was gone. So I had to go through the miscarriage, and it actually had been gone for a while. So I did go ahead and take the misoprostol, and it didn't really work. And so then I just started hemorrhaging. And I just remember I was in my bathtub hemorrhaging, and I mean, it almost seemed like a life and death moment. But then at the same time, I was like, I don't know, do I call an ambulance? Like, is this gonna stop? Like, do I try to go in the car with all this blood flowing out? I was just like, I don't know what to do. And so I think we finally just like put a trash bag down and headed to the hospital. I had to have a blood transfusion, an emergency D&C. It was pretty traumatic. And then to top it off, there was, so they just put you in like a regular hospital room afterwards, like a shared hospital room with just like a curtain in the middle. And I'm sharing this hospital room with this brain surgery patient. And she's just like really not nice. And so it's like 10 p.m. and I've been up like all night hemorrhaging. And she's like 10 p.m. and she's like blasting the TV, and we're like on our last thread at this point. And so we like ask her to turn it down. She's like, I don't have to. And then, or May just turns it down a notch, but it's still like really loud blaring, and we're just like exhausted. And I think we asked the nurses, they're like, yeah, we can't do anything. So she eventually moves, and in the middle of the night, and then they bring in another patient in the middle of the night. So it's just like all night long, we're not sleeping. And it's kind of just like salt in the wound, because like it's already just been a horrible, horrible experience. And it was almost like a weird medical event versus the stillbirth was like almost sacred. My nurse was amazing. The support was amazing. Everyone was just so supportive of the experience. But like the miscarriage, it was kind of just like a medical event, like a really terrible medical event. It was just such a traumatic experience, like almost in some ways more traumatic than the stillbirth. And they had a mess up with the tissue. They sent in some of the tissue for like some tests that I didn't ask for, and then they didn't leave any tissue for the actual baby testing to see what was wrong with the baby or something like that. There was some kind of mix-up, and so I didn't get an actual test to confirm the abnormality, but I mean, it was assumed that that was probably the reason. When I went to the genetic testing about the abnormality, they said that it was likely a sperm error. And so at that time, I begged my husband that he please follow the stuff from It Starts with the Egg, and he agreed to do it. So we read the chapter out loud together, and he agreed to do the things, at least, some of the things in the book. And so then we prepared probably all the way till a year later from the second pregnancy, 2 years after the first pregnancy, and we decided to try again. It was a little harder this time. Now I'm 41. The first cycle passed, the second cycle passed, and still nothing. So that was kind of hard. And then the third cycle, I think my in-laws are visiting. There's just a lot going on. I had kind of slipped, like I had been like no alcohol, no coffee, and I think I had a cup of coffee and some alcohol, and I was just like, whatever. So I had kind of thrown out that cycle. I just was like gonna throw it away and be like not even hoping for anything. And that was the cycle. I got pregnant. So then I got a positive pregnancy test. I was due for my period and I just started like bleeding like a lot. Like it looked like basically like the start of a period. I mean, I was just like, well, this is terrible. I mean, this is a chemical pregnancy. Like, that's it. Wow. Now I can't even like have a full-blown pregnancy. I mean, it was really tough. It was like, it just felt like terrible. And I did have some over-the-counter progesterone, so I just started taking it. And crazy, the blood all dried up, and I was still pregnant. So I took the progesterone the whole first trimester, and I didn't have the spotting that I had had in my first full pregnancy. So that was cool. And we got to the NIP test. I was so nervous, but everything came back normal. And the whole pregnancy, I was just so anxious. Like, it was really hard to ever settle, because when you've had a 26-week loss, you realize like you could have a loss anytime, and you could have a loss, like, it's just so scary. Now, I forgot to mention that during my first pregnancy, I did have elements of HELP and preeclampsia, but no full diagnosis of anything. But I was having high blood pressure and like different elements, so that really scared me. So in future pregnancies, I took precautions to try to avoid preeclampsia, high blood pressure, all those things. And but in my first full pregnancy, 39 weeks, and I had to be induced and deliver. But I had a healthy baby. He's so smart, so healthy. So I kind of thought that I might like to have another, but I also wanted to have a really like fulfilling breastfeeding journey. Like, I wanted to breastfeed as long as I wanted to and not rush things, because I didn't know if I would have another, and so I really wanted to enjoy the breastfeeding journey. Unfortunately, when I was breastfeeding, it did take away a lot of my fertility, so it took a long while to get my period back. It was just, I wasn't really as fertile when I did have my period. So I kind of wanted another child, but I didn't want to shortchange my breastfeeding journey. It seemed to be affecting my fertility. I was 41 when I had my son, almost 42, and then I went into my 43rd year, and then so I decided I would start kind of weaning and cutting back, and so right after my 44th birthday, I did get pregnant. And this time I also did the progesterone while I was pregnant in the first trimester. And I got to the NIP test and everything was clear. It's just so amazing. And, you know, again, I had that full successful pregnancy, but I was still just really anxious the whole time. So fortunately, I was really busy. There was a lot going on. So that helped a little bit to have my focus off of it. I did so much research on preeclampsia, and I have another video out there about that. So I try to do videos about all the research I do. But I did so much research, and I still got high blood pressure right around 38, 39 weeks. Still had to be induced, but have a healthy baby, and so thankful for the result of this journey. And I just want to help other people out there who might be struggling. And I just hope you can find your happy ending. Again, I'm Kristinista Health, and I hope you have a great day.